Yeah, greetings. This is the original Prince Jr. Yeah, we're gonna give you some information about the history of Jamaican music as we have experienced it and as we know it. We were born on Charles Street in Kingston, 40 Charles Street, between Princess Street and Matthews Lane. We say Matches Lane. Yeah? Um, there was a piano shop and a barber shop right in front of the yard at the gate. Mackenzie Brothers was the name of the piano shop. The only piano shop that refurbished pianos in downtown Kingston and also rented them out. Because I remember they rented pianos when Count Prince Miller, the mule train man, did a show back in the 60s in a park somewhere in out east. Yeah. Down the way from us, we have Tom, who became Tom the Great Sebastian. But before he was the Great Sebastian, he was just Tom's, right? And he had his hi-fi system, and he owned a hardware store right at the corner of Luke Lane and Charles Street. And he would put some of his speakers on the sidewalk and play music, and everyone would listen, in the neighborhood. Then my uncle was across the way on the other side. He used to store his sound there, sons, right? And when Tom lock up the hardware store and go home, my uncle would pick up and start playing. So him and Tom became good friends. And Tom used to play at Silver Slipper Club. Whenever he had more dates than he could handle, he would ask my uncle to fill in for him at Silver Slipper. So later on, when he became Tom the Great Sebastian, my uncle became the Junior Sebastian. Okay? Now, the same shop that my uncle used to store his sound in was the same shop that when he left out of there and went down Princess Street, that shop was taken over by Prince Buster. And when Prince Buster left that shop, it was taken over by Lee Scratch Perry. Okay? Now, there was a man in Jamaica who built the first amplifier, Headley Jones. He went away World War II, and he was a radar operator in England, in the force. And when he came home, he decided he was going to sell records. So in order to enhance the records that he was selling to play, so he could attract people, he decided to build an amplifier. And when he tested it out one night up King Street, and so happens that Tom was playing at Jubilee Tile Lawn on King Street. And when he tested it out, he drowned out Tom. So a few days later, Tom showed up at his house with money in hand and said, well, he would like to buy that. And when Tom got the amplifier, he said, no, I have a real sound system. So that is how the term sound system came into Jamaica. Okay, sound system was based on people building amplifiers, right? Yeah. So and then there was an apprentice there with Headley Jones, and he was the one who named Tom the Great Sebastian. So that's from the time Tom got the amplifier, the sound system as he coined it. That was when he became the Great Sebastian. And my uncle was dubbed the Junior Sebastian because he would play and fill in for Tom at Silver Slipper. And also when Tom left on Charles Street and went home, my uncle would pick it up and start playing. So now Headley Jones had a son called John, and John was the one who um, also built more amplifiers for my uncle, because initially they built one amplifier, but later on, a few years later, yeah, John built more amplifiers. So my uncle amplifiers, where he had like 3 stages: one for top end, one for middle, one for bass. And when he put them down, the turntable sit right on top of it, and you could just stand up. It was right up in your face to play the one Gerard turntable. Okay. Now, John also had someone there um, doing apprentice for him called Denton. Denton is currently now still one of the top technicians in Jamaica, and who services a lot of the big sounds in Jamaica, including like Stone Love and Soul Tone and like that. Okay? And also there was another apprentice there called Willie. Okay? They started out on Charles Street, and then they ended up at Rose Lane and Beeson Street. And that was where, when I started playing sound, they built the first amplifier for TNT's Disco 1968 out of Kingston College, right? We were all going to KC, and there was Tony James and Tony Chinlay, and TNT, Tony and Tony. That's how they got that name. And they built a disco, because back in the 60s, when they had all the big sounds, like the Coxsone and the Duke Creed and the King Edwards, Lord Coos, Count John the Lions, V Rocket, Mighty Viking, yeah, a lot of big sounds, okay? And somewhere I think around, maybe, I would say maybe it could be around 65, 66, somewhere there. The cops were mashing up all of the dances, because they said the sounds were too loud. So people had to scale down, or some people moved and went to the country. Like my uncle went to Spanish Town, to Brayton, and then who scaled down, they started to call it discotheque. And it's the discotheque era I really came in, 1968, yeah, TNTs. And then now, yeah, that sound discos, coming around. That Sir George the Atomic also had a disco, yeah. And yeah, the other sounds that was around Sir Daly's Emperor Fate, like that. Tipper Tone come in, yeah. So then Gussie Clark was one of our crew members with TNTs. Also Witty was there, Soul Tone, and his father had a lodge, and they used to sell coffin and things like that. And he would his father had a PA system, so every now and then that's how he started his thing to go behind his father's back and play his father's system. And his father would catch him, and he would raise hell with him, But I guess Witty probably was one of the favorite kids for his father, so I guess he never really got into too much trouble. But they had the song, and he decided to build a sound called King Gussie's, of which I was also the primary selector on TNTs and King Gussie's. And then later on, Tipper Tone, which was played by one of my family friends, yeah, Wang Chu. I started to go follow the bigger sound, because Tipper Tone had more power. You know what I mean? Yeah, Tipper Tone used to play 5 speakers and a horn, 4 15, Fian 15, and then he had one Goodman's 18-inch that he called was the gate box. So whenever they had the need for it, but basically he would play the 15s, and Tipper was a nice sounding set. So I was playing as a second for Wang Chu. When the sound strung up, I was warm up the sound, and later on in the night, when Wang Chu needs a break, I would, you know, pick up the whip and play again. Everybody knew I was a wicked selector as a little youth. That time I was only like 14 and 15. Yeah. And we used to play up King Street every Friday night. There was right near Fletcher's Land. There was a yard up there where we play every Friday night. Tipperton play. We also played down a place called Furnace down Salt Lane, and we played Outlook Avenue off Windward Road. We play Waymouth Drive. We play a place down across from Central Police Station down on East Queen Street called Room at the Top. Was a bar on top of a 3-story building. The Cambridge Hardware. Yeah. And yeah, I played all those places, to name a few, right? And I can tell you incidents that happen all over, the one where we played out at Outlook Avenue that night, that was the first time in my life that I see a fence just go flat like that. The dance playing and police come, and all of a sudden a fence that was perfectly normal just went flat and everybody running. Also, what else I could tell you? In 1970, I saw Dennis Brown on the corner of Charles Street and Orange Street, and he said, I told him that I wanted to do a song, but in my mind I wanted to sing because I like singing. And he took me up to Coxon and told Coxon that I was his brethren and I wanted to DJ, because being as he knew that I was selecting all these sound and things like that, he thought I wanted to DJ, but I didn't know anything about DJing. So when he took me to Coxon, he said, Mr. Dad, this is my brethren, he want to DJ a song. I was like, what? I don't know anything about that. Anyway, Mr. Dad looked at him and looked at me and he said, then him can DJ. And Mr. Dad said, and Dennis said to Mr. Dad, yeah, man. Like he knew that I could DJ, But in any case, Mr. Dad said, take him around to the engineer and see what he could do. So I went back there and I DJ'd the song No, No, No by Don Penn. Mr. Dad came around later on and reviewed it and decided, okay, I have a good voice, but I didn't have any lyrics. I was just basically imitating Hugh Roy and Scotty, who were the most prominent DJs at that time. So now, he said, I have a #1 song for you, and I want you to go home, make up a little story, and come back tomorrow. So that's what I did. The song was There's a Picture Hanging on the Wall with Freddie McKay. The next day when I went back, I took Gussie Clark with me to the studio, and that was the first time Gussie went into a studio. That was Studio One at Brentford Road, and I was playing his song King Gussie. So he said to me before I go into the studio to actually do the song, he said, remember to say something about the sound. So anyone who listens to that song, I was like 15 at the time, yeah. About 3/4 way after the song, I said, don't be fussy, keep it skanking to the man King Gussie, So, yeah, so that's another part of history there like that. Also, to go back to the sound thing now, right? Prince Buster, when he had his shop on Charles Street, when he got big, after he did Wash Wash, and he bought a convertible car, I remember it well. And because my father know him well too, we all know him because we're all from the area. My father used to ride bicycle at race course as a cyclist, and sometimes him and Prince Buster would be racing up and down Princess Street on bicycle. So when he got some money, he decided to build a building right across the street from him. And once he did that, um, and he kept his jukeboxes there, and he was going to move his record shop over there. And before he could complete all of that, they said there were people saying things like, anyone who is not on Orange Street, not saying anything. So he just dropped everything, went around to Orange Street, and the yard that he used to live in, he bought it and built up it over there, and opened his record shop there, and he used to keep the sound around there, I think, too. Um, yeah, so Orange Street, at all the record stores from North Street, you have Beverly's coming down, you touch JJ's, and then you touch him on the same side. Across the street was Coxon. Down more, you had um, Bonnie Lee, and there was Clancy Eccles with his tailor shop, and he used to sell things out there to his record. And a lot of other people was down Orange Street. Um, so that's where we're at with this right now, and we're gonna leave you right there until we migrated right after we did the song, because Coxon, when he heard the version of the Picture on the Wall, he had just gotten a contract, he said, to play down at Victoria Pier, down King Street at the pier. And he had a disco because he had more than one sound, and he wanted me to play the sound. But it never manifested because I migrated. Okay? So on the next video, I will tell you about my next leg when I hit New York. Okay? Alright, so until then, take care, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Original Prince Jr.'s page. Okay? Alright, thank you.